Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Vicki. I'm going to be giving an informative speech today on the effects that heat can have on a hot car and how that can impact a child inside. Each year we hear of the tragic loss of a young child who has lost their life as a result of a heat stroke. Pawlowski also calls this medical terminology hyperthermia. Since 1998, 560 children have died as a result of a heat stroke or hyperthermia. Tragically, this year alone in 2013, one child has statistically made that route and has now become a statistic with also being involved. Today I will inform you of the effects that heat will have on hot cars and how that will impact children. As a nurse who works in a small rural community, last year alone it was our community that became one of those statistics. We were affected tragically by one of those children dying. According to the Children's Hospital of Pediatrics, children's bodies will absorb the heat 5 times faster than that of an adult. It is my intentions that after hearing my speech, you will understand the effects that heat can have on cars on children, and you will know what to do if you happen to stumble across a child in a car. You will also understand and identify the interventions that you can use to prevent a child from being in a hot car, if even for a short time. I will inform you of how fast heat can affect the inside temperature of a car, the reasons why children are in cars, the effects that the extreme heat can have on a child that is in a car, and also discuss ways that we can prevent children from being in warm cars and having these tragedies. So let's start today with the effects that heat have on the inside of a car. Pawlowski says, in the summertime, even 70-degree weather can be deadly to a child after 10 minutes. It is the ultraviolet rays from the sun that cause a greenhouse effect on the inside of a car, and this is despite even having the windows down. He conducted a research study that showed the effects that heat have on the inside of a car. After 10 minutes, the inside temperature degree of the car was more than 19 degrees warmer than the outside. After 20 minutes, it was 29 degrees warmer. In 30 minutes, it had raised to 36 degrees. After 60 minutes, it had gone up 43 degrees. And after an hour to 2 hours, it was roughly 45 to 50 degrees warmer than what the temperature of the outside was of the car. Knoll reported that despite the window up or down, and despite the location of the car, that has no matter as far as affecting the temperature and what will play in the role of the inside of the car. Knoll also did a research conduction study, and he also in conjunction with General Motors. Their study showed that in an 80-degree outside temperature, they did the research on a small car, gray in color with gray interior. They showed that they had the window cracked, and after 1 hour, the temperature outside remained 80 degrees, and the temperature inside the car was an astonishing 123 degrees. Just imagine a child being inside of that car and what their temperature would be. Once again, 5 times faster than what an adult does is what a child will develop as far as being hot. This important factor is influenced by the body mass index of a child. They warm 5 times faster, and because they have a smaller BMI, it takes them less time to become warmer. When a child's temperature reaches astonishing 104 degrees, it will become life-threatening. At 170 degrees, it becomes fatal and death is inevitable. So now that we've discussed the effects of how fast a car is warmed by the sun, let's look at why kids may be in a warm car. Pawlowski says there are numerous reasons there's fatalities over a year. 14 years, 560 of those children died because of unintentional reasons and preventable reasons. The number one largest reason, as reported by KidsInCars.org, was that these results of death were unintentional. David Diamond, professor of molecular physiology at the University of Florida, reports that memory is a machine and not flawless. Our conscious mind prioritizes things by the importance, but on a cellular level, and not because of memory. So if we are capable of forgetting our cell phones, we are capable of forgetting our children. KidsInCars.org reports that life is busy. Parents are sleep deprived, they have the chaos of life, and there are many distractions that can cause the unintentional forgetfulness of their child. Another example could be that your child falls asleep in the back of the car. Not having the stimulation or the noise of the child can make you forget that the child is back there. And despite how loving of a parent you are, or where you work, or how much money you have, even the best parents can forget a child. KidsInCars.org also reports that children in rear-faced car seats are also known to be forgotten. This is because if you glance in your rearview mirror, the car seat will look the same regardless if there's a child in it or if the child is not there. Knoll reports that of the 560 children that died within the last 14 years, 288 of them were unintentionally left in the car by a parent or a child care provider. Sadly enough, Grunstein, Knoll, and Merheimer report that of those children, one of them was not found for over 5 days. KidsInCars.com reports that the second largest number of reasons that these deaths occurred was because children themselves climbed into the cars. Children become mischievous and like to investigate things, and when they climb into an unlocked car, it can be tragic or deathly. Sometimes these children get so curious that they even climb into a trunk and become trapped. Because of these children that climbed in cars unintentionally without parents being aware, 163 of those 560 were as a result of children climbing in. And sadly enough, Knoll reports that of those children, many of them were found in a trunk. KidsInCars.com reports the third leading cause of death has resulted with children in cars as being intentionally placed in a car and left. This can become fatal regardless of how long they are in there, even if it's within just seconds. No matter if the window is down or the air conditioner is on. There are many excuses that parents come up with to intentionally leave their children in the car. Some of these include they were just going to be gone for a moment, their children are sleeping so they didn't want to wake them. Knoll reports that of those 560, 100 of those children could have been prevented in deaths if the parents would not have intentionally left them in the car. This goes back to the example I provided earlier with me being a nurse in the local community. Our tragedy was a result of a parent intentionally leaving a child in the car. The mother in her case had just gone to visit a family friend and had drove here from a distance. Because her 2-year-old child was sleeping in the back of the car, the air conditioner was running, she felt that it would be appropriate to go in and visit with her friend even if for a short time. After 10 minutes of returning back out to check on the child to make sure that she was just sleeping and that everything was okay, it was found that the child was breathless and at that point deceased. So even despite her intentions of wanting to leave the child sleep in a comfortable environment, tragedy occurred. So now that you're aware of why children are in cars, let's look at the danger that the extensive heat can have on children when in a vehicle. The National Highway Association says, once again, that the body mass index will cause a child to absorb heat 5 times faster than that of an adult. The reason for this is children do not sweat as fastly as an adults, which is the reason why we can decrease our temperature if we become hot. Knoll reports in his research that the children develop many signs and symptoms when in the car, despite even if they are sleeping. The first occurs can be dizziness or disorientation if they are conscious. Then they develop a red, dry, hot skin. This is as a result because they are starting to become dehydrated. Then they will develop symptoms such as a headache, an increased heart rate, which over time will quickly turn to a slow pulse, and becomes weak, the child will then become sluggish, may experience seizure activity, decreased level of consciousness, and eventually death. Now that we have discussed how the heat can impact these children and raise their heat temperature along with other signs and symptoms, let's look at some of the causes that kids in the car say that we can do to prevent. They say the number one thing that we can do to prevent these inevitable deaths, if we don't catch them early, would be to prevent them with education. Education should be provided to parents as well as caregivers. Where'sTheBaby.com says that parents and caregivers need to become with the face of reality that it can happen to you. You should never leave your children alone in a car, even for a second. The National Highway Association also states that they should not even be left alone in the car, even if the air conditioner is on. If you feel that you are hot, the child is even warmer. Therefore, you need to make sure that you get them to safety as well. You should remind yourself to check on a sleeping baby. And a few other things that you can do, as recommended by Where'sTheBaby.com, would be to leave a note in your front seat. Something as a reminder to remind you the child is back there in case they would be sleeping or you wouldn't remember that they are back there. Another thing you could do is place an object in the back seat, such as a purse or a briefcase that you know that you'll be using. So that forces you to get in the back seat to get that object, and if the child would still be in there, you would know. You would be able to check out that car seat and you would see that child at that time. Another thing you could do is place an object such as a stuffed animal or something that would remind you of the child in your front seat. So when you park your car, you will glance over and see this object, which will make you remember the child and once again be another visual reminder for you of whether or not you dropped your child off at daycare or you had your child with you. The National Highway Association also recommends that you put a plan in place with your daycare provider. For some of the reasons that a child could be unintentionally left in the car would be if you are a parent who does not have a daily routine of dropping your child off. Now something happens and you need to be the one to drop your child off. Because your mind is in a daily set routine, it is not impossible for you to forget that you didn't have your child with you or that you forgot to drop them off at daycare. So if you can set a plan in place with your child care provider that if the child does not get dropped off and it was the day they were to be there, if they could give you a call just to let you know that you didn't drop the child off, it would be a reminder that if possibly you left your child in the car, you would get a call and it would be a reminder to check. Another thing you can do if you're not the sole person to drop your child off at like a daycare every day, you should have your significant other who normally would be the one dropping the child off just give you a call and say, did you drop the children off today? Just as a reminder to make sure that that got done. Another invention that you could do that is recommended by the National Highway Association is to make sure you keep your children out of the vehicle. Educate them to stay out of the car unless they should be in there for any reason adult needs to be present. Make sure that you lock your doors every time that you get out of the car once all your children are out. And you need to educate the children if they would get into car to make sure that they honk to aware an adult that they are in there if they are stuck and not able to get back out. This, of course, is only in a situation when they had gotten in and you had not locked your door, because children can become trapped and that causes them to stay in the car thinking that someone's going to come and get them. And in fact, they're not aware that they are there. So if they honk the horn, that'll be a reminder to an adult that somebody is in there and they can get them out. And another thing that is recommended by Where'sTheBaby.com, if your child is missing, you cannot find them anywhere, the first place you should check is always your car. And if you check your car and they're not there, be sure to check the trunk. Many children have been found that they've been trapped in a trunk and can't get out. If you would stumble upon a car that has a child or an infant inside with no parent in there, you should be sure to call 911 right away. Attempt to get the children out if they look as though they have signs and symptoms as though they've been in there a while, such as lethargy or not sweating. And make sure you stay near the child until somebody can come and help, greater authority. So now that we're nearing the end of our speech, let's review some key points. Knoll states that heat strokes are preventative, but education is the key factor in preventing these children from dying every year. The National Highway Association says that 1 child a year is too many to lose in this tragedy. We have discussed the effects that the temperature can have on the inside because of the heat, the dangers associated with heat that it can have on the kids in a car, and some preventative measures that we can do to help prevent tragedies in the future. I hope you can utilize my information and help decrease the statistics and help save the life of a child. As a nurse who sees the effects of the heat on it firsthand and seeing how it has impacted my community, I can verify that it has tragedy effects not only on a child, but also on a family and a community despite the intentions. So remember, regardless of who you are, what you're doing, what your profession is, forgetting a sleeping child can happen to anyone. So don't become a statistic. Make sure you look in your back seat before you lock.